Awesome. Good afternoon, everyone, or morning, depending on where in the world you are joining us from. My name is Andrew Gorn, and I am the founder and CEO of Harmony Helper. I'd like to take a moment at the beginning to thank Course Connection for partnering with us to bring this virtual panel to life. A little bit about Course Connection. Course Connection is a course management software that makes it easy to manage everything in one place. And in a world where digital communications are more important than ever, Chorus Connection gives choral leaders the ability to connect with their singers and build their internal choral communities online. If you're interested in learning more about Chorus Connection, you can learn more at chorusconnection.com. I'd also like to thank everyone who tuned in today to listen to our discussion. I hope everyone is safe and well, and thank you for being here. Today, we'll be talking about how choral leaders and singers can overcome challenges during this very uncertain time. My personal background is in singing, and at Harmony Helper, we are passionate about helping singers unlock their true potential. Harmony Helper is an app that allows singers and groups of all levels to practice anytime and anywhere. And we're really trying to help groups and singers during the pandemic. And Harmony Helper is a platform that will further learning while apart. We're currently offering special group discount rates to help choruses during the pandemic. So if you're interested in learning more, you can learn more at harmonyhelper.com or send us an email at info@harmonyhelper.com. So with the onset of the pandemic, the choral community has faced major challenges. And today we are here to learn from the experiences of experts in the field so you can walk away with actionable tips and strategies that will help you be successful with your choral groups. We are joined by 9 highly respected choral leaders and experts today. And before we dive into the discussion, let's start with brief introductions. So first joining us is Jacob Levine, who is the founder and CEO of Course Connection.
Thanks, Andrew. First and foremost, just wanted to say thank you so much for helping to organize the event today. It's been a real pleasure working with you and Harmony Helper on this. And with that out of the way, my name is Jacob Levine. I'm the founder and CEO of Course Connection. I also serve on the board of the New York Choral Consortium, and I am a singing member of the New York City Gay Men's Chorus.
Awesome, thank you. Also joining us is Kellyanne Nelson, who is the Advertising and Development Associate for Course America, as well as the founder and Young Professionals Choral Collective.
Hi, Andrew. Thanks again for having us all here to be a part of this. It's always exciting to be able to connect with each other, but also to give more information. Like he said, I'm Kellyanne Nelson. I've been in the choral field for more than 2 decades, which is seemingly impossible since I'm 29. I've fulfilled the role of conductor and educator and founder, and I now find myself at Chorus America working in the advocacy area of choral music. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Also joining us is Gavin Thrasher, who is the artistic director of the New York City Gay Men's Chorus. Hi, Gavin.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for the introduction. It's wonderful to be here today. I just want to say hi to everybody. Like Andrew just said, I am the artistic director and conductor for the New York City Gay Men's Chorus. I've been working with Gala Choruses, which is the Gay and Lesbian Association of Choruses, for about 8 years now, being in LA and now being in New York with Jacob for about a year. I'm excited to be here. It's wonderful to be able to connect online in these times and be able to figure out ways forward together.
Thank you. Also joining us is Linnell Joy Jenkins, who is the artistic director of Westrick Music Academy and the music director of the Princeton Girl Choir.
Hello, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be with all of you. I can't wait just to be able to have this wonderful conversation and learn from my colleagues, as well as share. I serve as artistic director of Westrick Music Academy, which is the home of the Princeton Girl Choir, the Princeton Boy Choir, and a few education programs such as Poco Voce. And I also serve as a choir teacher in a middle school in Pennington, New Jersey.
Awesome. We have Tim Seelig, the artistic director of the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus. Thank you for joining us, Tim.
Good morning, everybody, or afternoon. I'm Tim Seelig, the artistic director of the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus. Did that sound like it was just repeated? Because it was. I've been conducting gala choruses for, let's see, 34 years, from Turtle Creek Chorale to now San Francisco. So happy to be here.
Awesome. Also joining us is Sarah Langworthy, founder and developer, or founder of Develop Play. Thank you for joining us, Sarah.
I am happy to be here today. I'm so glad to be on this really great panel of people. I don't know how I landed in this life, but I'm a consultant who works with a lot of choirs right now, especially as folks are thinking of transitioning to virtual spaces, whether that's doing virtual choirs or virtual ensembles. I'm a singer myself. I've been singing with the National Lutheran Choir here in the Twin Cities for the last 14 years. Very glad to be here.
Awesome. Also joining us is Adam Reinwald, owner of Open Voices LLC and Beer Choir. Hi, Adam.
Hello, everybody. Nice to see you today. Excited to hear from everybody what all the new stuff that's coming around in this crazy world. I am the owner of Beer Choir and have a great time leading chapters across the country and doing some consulting. I'm a choir director with a church choir out in Wayzata, Minnesota, and looking forward to hearing from you all today.
Awesome. And we have Maria A. Ellis, who is a music education consultant and owner of Girl Conductor. Hi, Maria.
Well, hello. Thank you all for having me on this panel. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. As you said, I'm Maria A. Ellis. I am the Community Engagement Manager for the St. Louis Children's Choirs, and I am the owner of Girl Conductor, a brand who celebrates women, females, and just conductors in general, and also creates diverse products for students and teachers around the world. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. And also we have Terrence Kelly, Artistic Director of Oakland Interfaith Gospel Choir, joining us. Hi, Terrence. How are you?
Good morning. Sorry to be late. Got some family stuff. Bad news. My sister's daughter passed away. So I was dealing with my sister this morning. So sorry to be late, but I'm here.
No problem. Whatever you need to do. We're truly sorry to hear that. Whatever you need. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us and taking the time today to be a part of this wonderful panel. To jump into things, I think we can all agree that the choral community is facing incredible challenges with the pandemic. So let's take a moment to talk about what you've experienced or witnessed in the choral community since the pandemic has started. I'd love to start off with Kellyanne and Jacob and then open it up to anyone else who wants to respond.
Sure, I'll jump in. You know, there's a world in which we could talk about what we're seeing in the choral community from a really negative perspective. Of course, you know, we have certainly seen cancellations and there's changes in revenue and the impact of all of those things. But what we are seeing at Chorus America, and I think all of us sitting on this panel are seeing, is that one of the biggest superpowers of our community is creativity. And so what we are seeing more than anything else across the choral spectrum, small choruses, big choruses, whatever it is creative solutions to what it is they're doing. You know, all of the decisions that choirs are making are based on the geography, where they are, what's happening with the pandemic, the needs of their constituency. But we're sort of seeing 4 different ways that people are looking to move forward, either fully digital and virtual. You might have seen the Washington Chorus release their really compelling season a couple of days ago. Some are going for a totally kind of a variety and diverse way of, you know, both educational opportunities and social opportunities and concerts. Some, depending on where they are, might be looking at a mixture of future live gatherings or small creative based on, again, where they are and what their needs are. And then we're also seeing some people who are sort of moving forward with dates. We will tell you on X date what it is we are going to be doing next. So finding new and different ways to be creative in both the way we offer them and also the way we story tell and sort of put things together.
Awesome.
Yeah, sure. Kellyanne did a great job of framing this in an optimistic and forward-looking way, and I don't have a ton to add there, other than to say, you know, obviously we're all going through some experience of grief right now, and just to normalize that is in fact an okay thing for us all to be experiencing, and it's okay to process that and experience that on its own timeline, while also hopefully keeping in mind that there is reason to be optimistic and hopeful about the future. We are an inherently creative community, and I think that there are a lot of reasons to feel like some of the creativity and innovation that's coming out right now will actually carry forward, things that even when the pandemic ends, you know, fingers crossed sooner rather than later, there will be interesting new tactics and strategies and fundraising ideas and ways of distributing information to people who can't make it to annual conferences every year. There's just a lot of really interesting stuff happening right now. And I think we'll touch on that a little bit later today as well. But I do very much appreciate Kellyanne's comment that there was a lot of reason to be optimistic moving forward.
I absolutely agree, and thank you. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add to that? No? Awesome. So this next question is geared towards Linnell, Gavin, and Terrence, but of course, if anyone has anything to add, you can always jump in. What are some modifications that music directors have had to make or will have to make for the rehearsals and performances? Are there any interesting performance concepts that choruses or your singers are experimenting with?
For me, I had to make a paradigm shift in my thinking about what choir is. The choir for me, especially leading a performance-based program, the emphasis is on singing and performing. But I was encouraged to think about choir differently as I transition into virtual instruction. Kelly Walsh, as we all have, read her comments, who's the choral leader in Canada, if choir is only about singing and performing, then there will be no choir for a while. And so it really challenged me in a positive way to think, what is choir and how can I be able to move forward virtually, and can I continue to keep the teaching, the learning, the growing, the connecting, the community, the cultural exploration, the transmission, and the innovating. And Kellyanne had already talked about, how being creative and using our creative juices, and we will find a way to have choir. So with thinking about that, I had to, figure this out. And my choir members, I had a chance to be able to extend the season just 4 more weeks, just to be able to see how we could do it better in preparation for the fall. And just, talk with some of the advanced singers and just get their input about what are some of the things that they see is important for them in choir. And many of them requested, can we learn about conducting, learn about some of the choices you make as a conductor. Wow, that was a huge paradigm shift in my thinking. Some of them asked if we could learn about IPA. Now, we're talking about middle school, high school, singers. And I'm like, I didn't realize they knew about IPA, and that was shame on me. But here was an opportunity to be able to grow and learn and, grow in this way. And some of them wanted to learn how to improvise with using modes and being able to use that. And again, here's the innovative part. And then some of them just wanted to work on their regular sight singing. Some wanted to learn chord progressions from pop music all the way over to gospel. So I really was inspired by the singers as well as choral conductors that are out there sharing their wisdom. Maria Ellis was one of the first ones, and my sister had sent me the link to one of your Zoom classes about how to be able to teach virtually and to keep the musical and the communal engagement going. And I was just so impressed by the resilience of our choral singers as well as our fellow choral conductors as we move forward to be able to think about choir a little bit differently, to still keep the musical engagement as well as keep the communal engagement.
Awesome, thank you. Gavin, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just a little bit. First, I want to echo what you just said. You said so beautifully. It really, we've found as well that shift to really more focus on the community. NYC has been a really community-based organization from the beginning. That's how it started. That's a very strong part of who we are. But as time went on, more and more focus was put on the musical product, like we were just talking about. But we found that during this time, shifting back to focusing on that community engagement, focusing on who we are with each other, and the interpersonal connections that exist there, for all of us right now in this pandemic, as we're all on this Zoom webinar right now, rather than meeting in person, that community and that interpersonal interaction is missing in a lot of our lives and places. And it's something that choral music, because we've built those connections, many of us in ensembles in person now are able to maintain them over a Zoom space or virtually like we're doing. So thank you for saying everything you did. There's also been, as you said, for me, some modifications to how I think about rehearsals and how we think about engaging in music in this time and what we can do online. As conductors or singers, we're used to focusing in rehearsal on our sound as an ensemble and how our vowels are together and how we create dynamics and the flow of the music live in rehearsal. It's hard to do that via Zoom. So there's kind of a shift and an opportunity I see to deepen our understanding of technique and our understanding of musical, and as you said, IPA, and different musical concepts. And so for me, the modification is a temporary shift in how we're doing things. We're still making music together. We're still being together and holding space for each other. But it's focused a little bit more on our individual portions of what we bring to it, so that when we do put together, I'm sure many of you have seen the virtual chorus, virtual choir projects, or when we do finally get back in person to sing, we all have continued to grow together as a community, as an ensemble, is the modifications we've been making.
Awesome. How about you, Terrence?
Ashe and Ashe, I agree 100% with both of my colleagues there. It is more so about community right now, with 1 in 6 people in the country being in some sort of choir or another. We've had to find ways to keep that together. So we've done virtual gathering place for the choir Monday through Friday. They can just come into the virtual, it's a happy hour. They can come into the happy hour and connect with one another. And we have different hosts for that so that they don't lose the connection. And then we had a virtual picnic Saturday just for interpersonal connection. And then my section leaders have become my best friends and choir leaders, because we're on break now, but while we were rehearsing, we would go into a Zoom meeting and then right into breakout rooms, so they could just do sectionals almost most of the rehearsal. And that way one section wasn't waiting to work with me while I was working with the other section. So then we come back together and like test 4 people to see if it seems like the section is retaining the music. And so that was one way we were able to do it. And then we just have one person, section leader, sing the part perfectly and send it out for a ringer effect, so that people can just sing along. And those are the ways we've made a change, other than the exact same things you guys were saying earlier. We have to make those personal connections.
Awesome. Does anyone else have anything else to add before we move on?
Andrew, I think we should just clarify. I saw a question come through in the chat about IPA, and I think it's really awesome to answer that question because we have such diverse constituency here. IPA and Linnell's thing being the International Phonetic Alphabet and the way that we teach our students to use a common shared language. Of course, with Beer Choir here on the call, it takes on a whole other meaning, and I love the global impact of those 3 letters right there.
Thank you for jumping in to answer that. Awesome. For the next question, this one is geared towards Tim, Gavin, Maria, Terrence, Adam, and Linnell. I'd be interested in hearing what types of virtual activities have you and your singers been doing since the pandemic has started? We can kick it off with you, Tim.
I love the fact that the Interfaith Gospel Choir has happy hour 5 days a week. Here's to you, Beer Choir, and I love that. I think it's awesome. So there's a lot we've already said. Linnell said it so beautifully. There's a new study by Dustin Cates from Temple University about participation in choruses, and it's interesting that we are all now finding that while our singers may have joined choir, they also joined it as a social outlet and as a family, and that may have been in the shadows that has now come into full light. That portion of it, I've said, and many of you have said as well, we may have had what we do taken away temporarily, but they can never take away who we are and what we are. And when I remind my singers on Zoom or wherever, we still are who we are. And we are musicians, and we're family, and we're activists, and we're all those things. It's just that we have to find a new way to do that. I'm really lucky that we jumped in early and I live in San Francisco, so Zoom was already here, where most of the country is like, what is Zoom? We were pretty much already there. So our guys have jumped in, and we don't have happy hour every day, but we do have a sober meeting, Terrence. So if you all need that link, I'm happy to help you with that. But we have an event every single day, and we have a sober meeting, we have meditation, we have game night, we have fitness about 3 or 4 times a week, thanks to the COVID-19 pounds we've all added. We have movie night, book club, and we have cooking night. And that happens. So there is something every single day that our singers can do to keep connected. I might join Terrence's choir and just go to the happy hour. It's easier. I don't have to go to any of these Zoom things, by the way. I don't have to go to fitness or the sober meeting. So we're, I drop in every once in a while to cooking class to see what is up. But it really has, the interesting thing is with a large chorus, the basses and the first tenors don't have a clue who the other people on the other side of the room is. And all of a sudden 20 people are on a cooking class and they're getting to know each other better than they ever would have had this not happened. So that's one of the positives.
Awesome. Gavin, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I want to start. I've seen a couple questions, both in the Q&A and chat. I think Virginia asked a question in the Q&A, which I typed an answer to, but I'll kind of answer here. And then Sheila asked in the chat a little bit about the rehearsals. Terrence answered it very well. That's basically what we're doing, is focused on sectionals, where we can teach the individual parts to different sections and then put them back together, either in one of these virtual projects that we do or live when we're finally back together. The other question that was part of that was a little bit about how we handle delay in Zoom. And the short answer to that is we kind of don't, right? So Zoom can only handle audio one direction at a time, unfortunately, which is why you see that most of us are muted when one of us is talking, so we don't end up with this cacophony. But so the way we've approached that is when we use Zoom as a platform, all of the singers will be muted, and either the accompanist or myself will play or sing, and have everyone follow along at home in terms of learning the parts. So it depends on different choirs, approach it differently depending on the level of the singers and what you want to do. But that's how we've approached it, is the delay then in the audio doesn't matter because everyone's singing along at home. So it's a different type of learning, a different type of repetition in terms of learning the music. But then also in terms of activities, part of this also is, I mentioned earlier the opportunity that this presents us, Linnell and a couple other people have mentioned it too, is a chance to work on other techniques and other parts of what we do that we don't spend as much time on in rehearsal. So this question was, what type of virtual activities have we done? So we do have some virtual gatherings and things that are happening along the lines of not to the extent that you were just talking, Tim, but that our membership has organized. But then from our standpoint, as from a musical standpoint, we're doing sectionals, and then we've also been doing musicianship workshops where we work on sight reading, music theory with music reading there, sight singing and those types of things, as well as some vocal technique to try and build out some of those portions of who we are and portions of our technique as musicians and as singers, so that when we come back, we still have been growing together, like I said earlier. We actually are adding some things like this in the fall. When we come back in September, we're going to be doing a series of sectionals and then full rehearsals, trying the breakout rooms like Terrence has. Thank you for that idea. And then also having guest speakers come. I think it was Maria that mentioned some of her singers that wanted to see about conducting, or Linnell, I can't remember who it was, like guest speakers to come talk about conducting technique, come talk about their specific genre of vocal technique that they work with, as well as more of these musicianship workshops. So that's kind of how we're moving forward in terms of virtual activities. And I'll talk more about this later, but we're actually extending our definition of membership this upcoming year, given this space that we're now in the pandemic and the walls that essentially have been broken down with everyone getting on Zoom and being able to get on the internet and join. The geographical barriers aren't there anymore. And given that we're not doing live performance, we're actually have created what we're calling associates, which is which are members of the chorus, that you do not have to audition, you don't have to be in New York, you don't have to you don't have to identify as anything. You're just anyone and everyone can join. So there's information on nycgmc.org, but what it means is that now this community, there's a chance to build it in an even broader sense and connect with people that otherwise would not be able to connect with each other, either because of geographical barriers or because they don't feel ready to come auditions. There's a chance to get some more practice, to get some more technique, to get some more skills so they can feel comfortable auditioning in the future somewhere. So we're trying to use this opportunity to expand the definition of who we are rather than find ourselves limited. So that's kind of the activities that we're designing.
That's awesome. And I will say from my side, I think one of the interesting things and exciting things with this virtual shift that I've noticed across many things with Singing and Beyond is not being bound to geography, which has been great. It's opened up access for way more people. Maria, do you have anything that you would like to add?
Yes, I'll add a little bit. Gavin kind of took my thunder because I was going to talk about meeting with girls from all around the country.
Sorry.
But, no, that's okay. That's one of the greatest things that I feel like I've done since the pandemic is I've had the opportunity to work with girls from grades 3 through 12 from around the country and connect them in ways. I mean, we're living in a time where there's so much disconnection from people because of race and sexuality and things like that. But I've had the opportunity of having these girls together from New York all the way to California and putting them in a space where they became friends, and I got to see them come out of their shells. And we've used Zoom, but I'd like to say that I've turned it into my own little television show, the Maria Ellis Hour, and it has been fun. Well, we've been able to not just do music, but we've been able to add real life. So we've been adding the social emotional learning, and we're talking about the pandemic, and we're talking about race and sexuality and all those different things, and helping these kids to formulate everything that's going on in their world and bring it back to the music. And it's been an outstanding task. So those are the things that we've been doing, using music, and I'll probably get back into this a little bit later on, but using music to bring it back to their world where they are right now and having a great time doing that. So I'll pause for now since I know we're going to talk later on about exactly what we all been doing.
Awesome, thank you. Terrence, how about you? Is there anything that you would like to add in terms of, I know you spoke a little bit earlier about what you've been up to, but any additional virtual activities that you and your singers have been doing that you'd like to share?
I've tried to make that I want to give to the choir when we come back next week, etiquette for Zoom rehearsal for the choir members. And this makes it okay for them to get up and stretch during rehearsal, to walk away from the screen if their section is not being addressed, because so many people Zoom all day at work, or and they're Zooming with family members. So then they come to choir rehearsal and they're Zooming again. And I had one choir member say, "I love rehearsal, Terrence, but I'm Zoomed out." So an etiquette where it's okay to be a little more relaxed in rehearsal, as long as you're present when your part is being addressed and so forth. Some things like that. Developing an etiquette for Zoom rehearsal. I'm almost done with it. I'm trying to be a much nicer COVID era director than I am when there's no COVID involved. So yeah, that Zoom etiquette, I'm almost done with it.
Awesome, thank you. That's really interesting, actually. Changing the etiquette and coming up with etiquette to really adapt to this new reality that we live in and work in and sing in. Adam, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
No, I think people have really covered it. I think finding the ways to be unique, be different, be open on virtual activities to what your singers need, to what your community needs. That's really the key, I think, is finding that flexibility, that malleability within the space. That's the best way to go about all virtual activities. So we found.
Awesome. But yeah, Terrence?
I just want to say, Gavin, I want to take that other guest conductors into the rehearsal. I'm so going to do that because I can say one thing to my choir members for 6 months straight, and they will struggle with it. Then Tim will come in and say that same thing, and they go, "Oh, that's brilliant." And I'm standing on the side of the room going, "What am I, chopped liver?" So see, all the directors are going. So I'm going, that's great. Thank you, Gavin, for that.
Awesome. Linnell, how about you? Anything additional to add?
Yeah, it's just really unique to see how empowered our singers can be by meeting other conductors, especially for our girls, to be able to see female conductors and to be able to see powerhouses and powerful composers like Rena Ismail. She preached to these girls. I mean, she changed their lives in such a unique way. And it's just so wonderful to have these experiences. Thinking about retention, during the summer, we've tried to keep the activities going so that we can keep them, for the fall. So doing something like Mystery Tune Mondays where they had to guess the tunes, we just put it either in solfege or in Western notation, they had to figure it out. And going back to Gavin's, the geographical barriers, we expected just our girls to respond. We had no idea that the whole world was watching our social media and was, commenting. We had conductors from all over and singers from all over guessing the tune, which was pretty impressive, but just such a fun thing to do, and having watch parties where they're able to watch a recent performance and just chat about it. And again, having the guest artists. And we also thought about not continuing with our first and second graders of doing our Poco Voce choir, but we continued this summer and they had such a thrill, and it just shows how resilient these young people are and how they're able to adapt to Zoom and technology better than I ever could. And today is the first day that we started Camp Westrick. So the kids are doing musical theater, piano, learning new songs, doing scavenger hunts, bingo, the sky's the limit. As we move into the fall, I saw there was questions about how we, break it up. I think one of the things I've learned is to be in smaller groups so that I'm able to track who they are as a person, their social growth, their emotional growth, as Maria was already talking about, as well as their musical and vocal growth. So taking our choirs and sectioning them off and using our collaborative pianists to serve as instructors as well, since they can't always accompany, but they can serve as instructors. And so while I'm working with one section on their vocal technique or their body alignment or preparation for a virtual choir, they could, the collaborative pianist can be working with them on songwriting, composition, theory, all training, sight singing, the sky's the limit, but just helping them be as creative who they can be, and all doing this through the virtual platform. So it's kind of neat that we're not really changing what we do, it's just how we do them.
That's really great. Does anyone else have anything to add before we move on to the next question? No? Awesome. So, I think a lot of these questions sort of blur together, but what technologies, tools, and resources have provided the most value for choral leaders? And also, would you feel provided the most value for your singers? I'd like to kick it off with Sarah, Jacob, Tim, and Adam, but we can also open it up to the floor afterwards. Sarah, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think for this question, my response to this question is a question, which is, what are you trying to do? So we've had a lot of great conversation about connecting with singers and doing online rehearsals. Zoom is an adequate, platform to make that happen. The breakout room functionality allows for a lot of that. There's a lot you can do. I've seen a lot in the chat about questions about, well, can you hear each other and how do you do that? And so one of the main limitations of Zoom, right, is the latency lag between audio. So you can't all sing together in the same way. There are some kind of creative ways around that. Many have been already talked about here. Another option would be if you have a previous recording, either a video or an audio recording, playing that through Zoom and having your singers mute and sing along. It's sort of like they're singing with their people and seeing everybody's faces on the screen. It can have that really compelling feel of connection. So, getting creative with platforms like Zoom is great. But I also think a lot of choral organizations are thinking, okay, how do we reach our audiences in this time too, right? How do we make sure we're connecting and deepening that relationship? And so, you know, I know a lot of groups will sometimes stream, you know, to YouTube or to Facebook, either with Zoom or with other platforms like that. I'm partial to a platform called StreamYard. It's really easy to use. You can bring on a few different guests. Adam and I will host beer choir happy hours using StreamYard and bring on guests from all over the place, you know, speaking of the geographically distant thing that you can do. So I think some of it is a little bit of answering who are you trying to reach and how. If you're trying to keep it to your singers, Zoom is great. If you're trying to think about how do we connect with our audience, you know, do we need to put on a virtual event of some sort? How do we make sure that our audience feels comfortable and welcomed into that space? You know, is doing an event at this time and this, you know, YouTube link enough? Do we want to do something that's more drawn out? What are the ways that we can connect with our audiences? You know, answers to those questions really inform what technology works best for that. And so getting a bit creative and thinking outside the Zoom box for those especially who are very tired of Zoom, you know, there are a lot of different options out there and ways to continue to connect.
Just to tag on slightly there, I think what you, in reconceiving of what is a live performance, you know, there's a possibility that there are people out there who are just super excited to watch your Zoom rehearsal. So maybe that becomes a broadcast opportunity, and all of a sudden you're doing live performance in a much more informal fashion, and it's that exact type of you know, toe in the water that a new audience member across the country needs for your organization. So I love the functionality of things like StreamYard as a new technology because it looks just that much more presentational. Even if the content is informal and the discussion might kind of veer around music, it's still a different way of thinking about how you present live performance or some deliverable, to use a really kind of jargony term, to your audience, perspective or current. So those are things that we enjoy. Other things that work really well, Crowdcast is a wonderful kind of broadcast medium that works, again, a little bit like a Zoom webinar, but it looks a little bit smoother and looks less as though we've been sitting in some sort of a HR training for 7 hours. You know, things a little bit like that, and finding new ways to the technology that you already have available to you is really quite something. Most everybody has some sort of a smartphone. That's all you need to capture great video and put it online, and all of a sudden people have a donor testimonial or a singer testimonial. All of a sudden those things are readily available to everyone right away.
Awesome, thank you, Adam. Jacob, how about you? Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, absolutely. So as a general note, as several folks on the panel have mentioned already, this has been a really creative time for folks in our field as people are trying to completely reinvent our organizations and figure out how to operate and stay relevant and engaged during this period of time. The first point that I think is worth making is that things are evolving so quickly these days that having places that you know you can regularly go to for great information is really, really helpful. So Chorus America is one immediate resource that comes to mind. Their website has lots of great resources on it. We've tried to put lots of great free content on Chorus Connections website as well, ranging from things that are COVID specific to things outside of that. So those two websites I think are worth checking out. There's also unbelievable value in being able to talk to your peers on a regular basis about what they're doing, posing ideas, finding out more about what's worked and what hasn't. And if you're not already familiar with the Chorus Management Network on Facebook, there are about 1,200 people in administrative roles in community choirs, mostly in the US, but also around the world. And almost on a daily basis, people are talking about the things that they're experimenting with and trying to get feedback from other people about what's worked and what hasn't. So that I would recommend as an ongoing resource. And I see that Tori just added that to the chat. So feel free to click that and check that out. And then in terms of more specific stuff, there are all sorts of different ways that organizations are looking to reinvent themselves right now. One of them is just quite simply in terms of basic day-to-day operations, how you communicate with your singers, how you distribute files, how you collect information from singers, how you're managing membership dues if you are continuing to collect membership dues this year. There are all sorts of things like that. And I think that, as is true of the broader world, not just the choral world, the pandemic has accelerated the move towards digital processes for a lot of organizations. So organizations that were mostly collecting membership dues by check at rehearsal, that's obviously not an option this year. So if you're looking for something comprehensive, you might go towards course management software. If you're looking for something simple, you might set up a PayPal link on your website. Same thing with communications. If you were distributing paper newsletters at rehearsal, you might be moving towards Google Groups or Facebook Groups or something along those lines. So I think that we're seeing an acceleration of an existing trend there, as is reflected in the world at large. And then there's a lot of really interesting stuff that's happening sort of on a one-off basis that I'm hearing about through the organizations that we talk to, where people are in some cases continuing to do things that were successful before, like Facebook fundraisers. That's something that has gained in popularity recently. And I think more people are going to be experimenting with things like that, or peer-to-peer fundraising campaigns, where I know for the New York City Gay Men's Chorus, we've had a lot of success with that over the years, where every member will have their own fundraising page set up through one of the various crowdfunding platforms, and then each of them can make an individual personal appeal to friends and family to fundraise. So I suspect that a lot more organizations are going to continue that trend and use that as a tool to generate unearned revenue. And then there are a lot of experiments happening right now with unearned and earned revenue. So organizations experimenting with having online fundraising events. Course America actually had a very successful one as part of their June virtual conference. But I also know a number of choruses that have had surprising success with that as well, using auction platforms or online ticketing platforms or text-to-give platforms as a way of helping to collect money as part of those events. So there's a lot of experimentation happening there. Similarly, as some of the other panelists, Adam, you sort of hinted at this a little bit, Dr. Langworthy, you mentioned this a little bit as well. How do you help to generate revenue through the content that your organization has produced, either existing content, recordings of past concerts that you've given, audio and video that you've collected through studio recordings, or there's a wide variety of things that your choir might have in the archives. But also new content, virtual choirs, things of that nature. Or even, Adam, as you mentioned, the idea of recording rehearsals and making that available to the public. There's the sky's the limit. There are so many interesting and creative options. And again, the technology that folks are using, in addition to the communication platforms, people are trying to sell tickets using ticketing platforms, or sometimes some organizations are experimenting with having gated content where you need to make it past some sort of a paywall to access these various types of recorded content. And so some e-commerce features on your website might be able to help with that. Or if you have a donor page on your website, that might also be relevant for that. And again, this is all like bleeding edge type of experimentation. So what the current state of thinking about this now will be totally different than a month from now. And my recommendation again is talk to your peers, sign up through one of those Facebook groups like the Chorus Management Network, ask people what they're doing, share the things that are working with your organization so that everyone can benefit from that collective problem solving and creativity. But there's definitely a lot of really exciting stuff that's happening right now that's using the technology available to advance the field. And I suspect some of this may still be relevant afterwards, after the pandemic is over.
Can I respond to that really quickly? Just in the strategic idea, I think that when we have live performances as choirs that are in our city and in our town, we know generally what our audience expects. As we move into a virtual world, all of a sudden, we don't know who our audience is going to be, nor should we expect to tell them what they should want. And so everything becomes a fair game, essentially, and you never really know what somebody is going to need to hear from an organization, a choir, an individual, an artist, whatever. Give them all the opportunities they can to embrace and wrap their arms around your organization or your art, and always give them an opportunity to give you money for it. Never take that away. I think there's just so many. There's in a lot of ways, there's a choral arts kind of umbrella that says, "This is what we do. Please pay us for what we do." I think that umbrella is completely out the window when we are fully virtually.
Awesome. Tim, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
There's an old showbiz adage that says, never follow a small child or a live animal on stage. We're adding a webinar, never follow Jacob Levine. Geez, that was a dissertation. That was awesome. Oh my gosh. But I do have something to add. Shocking. For the first time ever this last week, I found myself playing a track from my laptop, conducting from my iPad, recording my conducting from an iPhone with a beautiful LED ring to make me look pretty. I never imagined any of that would happen in my life. So all of you singers out there struggling with Zoom, your conductors are freaking out. This is like, I never intended to do that. I also never intended to conduct a song for my singers and take away the option of changing my mind at every rehearsal of where I wanted that breath. So, we're locked into this like, oh my gosh. I will say that the minute the pandemic began, the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus started an SFGMC, San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus TV channel, and you can go to it and you should. This is not a commercial, but SFGMC TV on sfgmc.org, and we have 4 buckets, and we're feeding those buckets with weekly content. And back to Adam and Gavin, you never know what the people want to see. So we have every week there's a singer spotlight where there's an interview with a singer. There's a behind the curtain with some pretty amazing people, from Billy Porter to Chasten Buttigieg. And we've been really lucky because early on people were like, sure, we'll do that. Now they're like, maybe not so much. And we're doing archival performances, and I will speak to that in a moment. And then we're doing it out in the community. And it's shocking which ones people really gravitate toward. But if you in your own organization think about I have different buckets and I can align them and people are going to gravitate, and yes, they will give you some money. One of the things that when we do get back together, we will be reminded is to video record more of our live performances in case this ever happens again. It's like, oh my gosh, why didn't we video that performance? Well, part of it's because of union fees, but I didn't say that. So we will absolutely create more content. We have found, and you will find, all you folks out there, that you may have sung to 100 or 200 people live, and when you put your things thoughtfully and professionally on YouTube, you're going to reach 1,000 or 10,000. Truly Brave, our first virtual choir, unbeknownst to us, hit 250,000 people. Do you know how many years it would take us to sing to 250,000 people? Well, yeah, a lot. So the world is our oyster when we're creative and professional, and we'll never hit those numbers again, by the way. I mean, we're cranking stuff out and it's 1,000 people, but 1,000 or 2,000, maybe more than we would sing to in a series of concerts. So that's the really positive thing. And I love what all of you all have said about erasing the boundaries of who's going to be watching it. We realized we live streamed our 40th anniversary concert. And while we were on live streaming it, there were people writing from New Zealand and Turkey. And we're like, what? You're not from Oakland, or you're not from Berkeley? Because that's where our brain was. And that's all been erased. And I've seen lots of really great chat questions, none of which we're answering, but this is so compelling. I'm sure you're thrilled.
Well, and just adding on, besides wanting to add that you are pretty no matter what, Tim, because I think that has to be said, but also that so much of what we are learning and developing and using is going to go beyond the end of the pandemic. We are not learning new tools and creating new ways of doing things for now. The world is going to change. You know, Adam referenced that, this idea that our audiences are going to expect new things. We are going to have people who are never going to feel comfortable walking back into a performance space. How do we make sure that they are in our performance space? There are so many creative ideas out there involving technology, and you've talked about so many of them, but just that reminder that we are moving forward with this, and whatever we invest now is being invested in the future of our organizations and of our profession.
Just to add a couple of quick notes there, one of the things that I was reminded of listening to Tim speak, there's the people who are on this panel for a reason. All of the organizations represented here are doing really interesting and creative stuff. And you know, there was someone who in the comments noted that, you know, how big is your staff to be able to do all of these interesting and creative things that you're trying? And the reality is that most organizations don't have the staff to be able to put in the time and energy to be on the bleeding edge of figuring out how to do all of these things. But that doesn't mean you can't benefit from all of that information that's out there. So go check out the SFGMC website, because they are doing really interesting things that might inspire you. Same thing for all of the other organizations that are represented on this panel. Talk to people through various community platforms like the Course Management Network, or Course America also has some listservs where members of their community can talk with one another. Find out what people are doing, learn, you know, expose yourself to as many of these creative ideas as possible in order to see, you know, maybe what SFGMC is doing won't work for you with a staff of 0 full-time people, but maybe it will spark a brilliant idea that is totally relevant for your organization, which you might not have thought of otherwise. So all of that creativity is there for the taking, so to speak. And then the other thought, which just as a possible other platform to explore, I know some artists are exploring nowadays with Patreon as if you're not familiar with Patreon, it's a way for your organization to basically have monthly subscribers who support the work that you do in exchange for sort of insider access, which sky's the limit there. You can totally be creative. But yet again, another platform that might be worth exploring as you figure out how do you keep engaging your audience, how do you keep money coming in. Lots of cool ideas there. Anyway, that's it.
Awesome. Anyone have anything else to add?
Well, when it gets to techie things, I just hand it to my crew because I'm one of the technologically challenged people. But we've had some people have workshops for some of our older people. And we also had a phrase in the community choir, the group that's over 60, we say grab a grandkid, you know, and then, to help, you know, navigate the fear, the real fear that some people have of just logging on, you know. So trying to move technology into a safe space for some people has been an issue that we've been able to work through. I'm just seeing all the comments in the chat that are saying, how do you improve your technology, you know, as you go along? And that can be a very good first step, is just some very simple workshops on whatever forms you're using to help get everybody on the same page. Choir check-ins, that's what I wanted to say in this segment. We've actually instituted a non-tech regular phone call that we've had a group of volunteers to call every member in our organization, just to call them and check in on them. And there are a few people that said we were the only voice call that they've actually got. Everything else has been email. So just to keep that personal part going, we've actually had every person in our organization to receive a phone call. And so that's an encouragement you know, for any size organization, if you have volunteers, you can institute that, and people really do appreciate that. I just wanted to throw that in. I'm sorry.
No problem. So I think this last question we covered a great amount of ground. So I think the next question that I have, which also covers, I believe, a few questions that we've had in chat, is how do you inspire your singers to stay motivated and positive during this time? You know, we've heard from people on the panel and people in chat that, you know, it's hard to keep singers motivated. Some aren't as tech savvy, which has been addressed. How do we stay connected and motivated to the best of our ability to meet the needs of as many people as we can? I'd love to start off with Linnell on this one, and then Maria and Gavin, and then open it up to anyone else. Linnell.
You know, this past weekend, I received an invitation from some of the alums to attend a virtual sleepover that I didn't even know was happening. But I thought it was kind of cool, a virtual sleepover where they invited all the, it was an advanced choir that they invited the newest members, you know, as well as the current members, just to welcome them and just to have a night of fun, socialization, and all of that. And it's a practice they've done, I think, for this is their third year, but I didn't anticipate them doing it virtually. And it was such an inspiration to me that they are still keep going virtually, that even as, you know, they're young and they have great ideas. And I'm so thrilled that even without me, they were able to continue this, and they access the executive director and the list and be able to contact the girls just to have, you know, this virtual sleepover, which is great. And that benefited them socially, as well as help with our retention, because, you know, they're going to sign up for the fall because they are reminded of that social engagement, which is so important. So I'm glad to know, even for our singers and our alums, that they realize we're not changing the experiencings, but we're just transferring them to a virtual platform. And that was a lesson to me about programming. Are we changing our programming, or are we doing it just a little bit different? So that also inspired me, you know, this weekend as I was reflecting, that I should make sure that I continue to empower and inspire them to be leaders, to be able to have ownership of programming, of their vocal technique, of how they're singing, their range, their vocal health, leadership to be able to use their spoken voice and also their social voice to be able to cause about change about what we're singing and how we're singing it, and things of that nature. And then also to have input. I forgot that I still have to make sure that I seek their input on a lot of things. And some of them emailed me this last week, can I help you with some of the technology? Or is there any technology platforms that you're considering? May we assist you in figuring it out together? Which really was impressive. And we also have college students who serve as our conducting fellows from our neighborhood colleges who also inquired the same thing. So we're having a nice meeting this week. One of the other things that I was inspired by was my mom's church. My mom is 87 years old and is the choir director at her church. And I can only tell you how much she misses playing the organ and playing for her choirs and conducting her choirs. Yesterday, while we were barbecuing in the back, they all came through in a caravan of maybe 8 or 6 cars with signs and confetti, and just great cheer, and just, you know, wishing her well and just giving her that kind of inspiration. And I forgot, even though we can't do the tangible touch, we can still reach out and just show our encouragement through things of that nature. So just a bundle of things of empowering them to have ownership, have leadership, input, and always encouraging them as often as we can and in various ways that we can.
Awesome. How about you, Maria? Anything to add?
Well, Dr. Linnell said just about everything that I was going to say. So let me try to see if I can find something to say to add to this. One of the things that has really motivated me is having the girls, the group that I've been working with, is having them to motivate each other. So one thing that we did I ran a summer camp for girls, like I said earlier. And one thing that we did is we had a fashion show where everybody got to, you know, they went in their rooms and they put on all their things to show off who their style was, show off their creativity. And with that, we had the girls just type in positive comments. So every time somebody would go, you would have to go and flood the comments with positivity. We took those comments from the chat and then we sent that to the girls so they could see, or they can have that reminder of the positivity that somebody had chat for them. We also did a talent show every week. And we did the same thing as we flooded the chat room with positivity. I wanted to say to any director that's out there, the way to keep them motivated and stuff is us. We have to remember the same motivation, the same thing that we carry during normal rehearsals. We just take that awesomeness and we give it back to them virtually. So if I come on to my Zoom session and if I'm slow and crabby, well then my session is gonna be slow and crabby. But if I get on and I say, good morning everybody, it's an awesome day and you are awesome and you are looking good, let's get this work done, then I've already changed the mood and changed the attitude of my room. Another thing that I've done to keep my singers motivated is I stole this idea from Cody Raven Morris. We start off with a dance party. So when they come online, we come in dancing and everybody is dancing and there's no, maybe day one, you may be a little shaky day one, but by day 5, everybody's in there giving off their dance moves. So we come in dancing, we come in with life. We talk to them, we get their ideas like Dr. Linnell said, I'm sorry. We get their ideas, we take what they want to do and we implement it, and then we pivot and read the room like you would do in normal rehearsals. So in your normal rehearsal, when the room starts to get weird, what do? Well, we pivot and we come up, we say, all right, everybody stand up and let's do a brain breaker. Let's do something else. That's exactly what I'm doing on my Zoom calls. I'm finding those ways to, if I start seeing little toes come on the screen, okay, I know I'm losing somebody. Well, I got to get those toes going the opposite way. And you got to stand up and we got to dance and we create dance moves and we've done music and science where we've taken these science experiments and we've put them in the music world. We've done costume changes where, one segment I may be, Maria with just a long flowing braids, but we may take a 5-minute break and I may come back with an afro on and it may be disco hour, but we're just finding ways to keep them engaged and motivated because you never know what Maria is going to come on the screen doing next. So you have to stay tuned and see what we're going to do. And we're having a great time. And I've noticed that not just from kids. With my church choir, we did the exact same thing. We had a game night with the church. And one of the things that we did is we did Real Housewives of the Bible. And I'm not a savvy person. I use Snapchat. Because Snapchat was able to give me many different filters. So I use Snapchat and then I have my YouTube playing in the background and I use that for my background music. And I changed it to all these different characters. So, I rapped about being Jezebel, but I did that to the Meg Thee Stallion, I'm a Savage beat. So I did that. And then when I had to be, who was it? Leah from the Bible, I turned on the spooky music because the Bible says that she wasn't the best looking person. So I turned on some spooky music and used the filter. They gave me a different set of eyes, but just to keep them motivated and keep them excited. So the things that if you say you're not a tech savvy person and you can't do it, that's fine. We're all learning. We are all learning. So take this opportunity to learn. And what you don't know, go grab a kid because they know how to do everything. So go find your neighbor or your kid or the kids in your classroom. Hey, say, look, I want to use Snapchat or I want to use TikTok or whatever. Can you show me how to do it? And they want to do it. They want us to ask for their help and they want to help us. So yeah, that's what I got. Okay, I don't want to talk too much.
Maria, you have over 200 people on the chat that want to join your choir. And Terrence wants to be one of the Real Housewives of the Bible.
And I have to jump in to say that this right here is why again, these creative communities, we invest in our people to have dynamic directors like Maria who care about the constituency that's in front of them. That's not an area as we're having to make revenue decisions. We need leadership who want to go out and make these connections, even if it is not about making the notes happen. It is about creating these powerful communities who raise their voices together. And the energy of your choir might be different than Maria's, but it is still important that those of us who lead rehearsals and read rooms and have the kind of connection, and now we're in their homes. So now we know more about their needs and their personalities. How important is it to have these kind of leaders like Maria in front of or in Zoom rooms or whatever to lift up people, especially at times when people are feeling connected or disconnected. And we know through the Chorus America Impact Study, the physical and mental problems that can arise from people who feel disconnected. This is the power of choral music. So thank you, Maria, and all of you.
That's awesome. Gavin, do you have anything to add?
Dr. Linnell and Maria and then Kellyanne, they all said it so well, so I don't really have much to, and Maria, you demonstrated the energy you're talking about just incredibly. So I agree with everything you both said. The connection of the singers and the power that they have to inspire each other is something that I think is really important from Dr. Linnell. And Maria, the point about the energy is just so true. And it's what I've learned over this process is it's so different to carry that energy on Zoom versus in a room. And that being aware that it's different and like taking time to figure out how to do that is important, and you can have your singers help you with that. The only thing I want to add is one specific example that I found really helped my singers and really helped also take the pressure off of me as the director to carry all of the inspiration in the room and carry that energy, was actually making sure that there's time in every rehearsal, if we're doing it via Zoom or whatever video platform, where you put everyone's unmuted and on screen, and you're not focused on music, and they're just checking in with each other and seeing each other and interacting. Obviously, we're all learning as we go. We started out very like making sure that the audio worked well and focusing on all of that, and it only took like a week and a half for me to realize that's not, like, we need more than that. And so taking time that you put the music aside and just let everyone see each other and interact and be present and excited about each other and talking, and it's cacophonous and it's wonderful. I found that moment is really helpful to maintaining this energy and maintaining that connection, and then takes the pressure off of it only being this pumped up energy the whole time, and allows them to remember that community and continue to build that, and then it can translate into more connection outside of that rehearsal room as well. But thank you. So Maria, that was wonderful. I want to come sing in your choir too.
I would like to, so we have a really big Q&A, quite a few people. I want to ask one more question to everyone, and then I'd love to move on to the Q&A and try to hit a few of those before our time here is up. So I want to ask everyone, what has been one positive thing that has come from this experience for choirs and singers? I would say if you can come up with a few sentences or just one big takeaway, we can work our way through. Sarah, I would love to start with you.
Yeah, I think for me, I've been a lifelong singer, and I also kind of have lived in the virtual space for a while now. This is kind of my area. And for years, I have been like, you guys, it's fun out here. There's cool stuff you can do, I promise. And people are like, yeah, I don't believe you. And now we're really starting to see lots of that creativity and different ideas and ways to use online platforms and virtual spaces to build community. And that is so exciting for me to see that happen in the choral community in a way it's never happened before. I think, Kellyanne, you mentioned earlier about how we're not going backwards. We need to be thinking about how do you take this forward and how do you carry this into the future? And so I'm just super excited to see what comes next, and what everyone continues to bring to this virtual space, because there's so much opportunity here.
Awesome, thank you. Kellyanne, how about you?
Yeah, I think it's this idea of connection, of real connection, and of relevance, right? So we have this opportunity right now to not only create these communities and this connection between directors and singers within the group. We have an opportunity to create real meaningful connections with our audiences, meeting them where they are and finding out what the needs of our community are, right? We have an opportunity to create connections within our community. People who are sitting here asking questions, picking each other's brains, having access to each other, and personalizing the experience. I think also from the administrative side, it allows us to get creative in the way that we fund what it is that we're doing. Some of you started talking about some of the great, 32 auctions that people, and people are holding virtual galas and creative ways. I've also seen like people are selling seats to their concert. Even though there's not a concert going on, they're selling seats because people know what a seat is, but they just want to find a way to help support what it is that people are doing and support these communities. We can think about being relevant in people's lives. We can think about creating connection, both for our mental well-being, our musical soul fulfillment, and also just to kind of help elevate our world at a time of disconnection. So I think there's just a lot of empowerment within that connectivity.
Awesome, thank you. Terrence, how about you? What's a positive takeaway from all of this that you found?
I think the phrase would be in conjunct, and that would be for the world of choir before COVID and the world of choir after COVID are doing are going to, it's prepared us to move forward in a way that I don't think we would have done had we not had this. We've had to face what was coming anyway, is the reality of an internet performance venue for all of us. So it has made us face it in a way that I don't think we were ready for, maybe, but it's great because now we are doing workshops and so forth on the weekends, and we have gospel yoga, and we have tambourine classes on Saturdays, and I do voice classes on Saturday mornings, and Nairobi comes, Costa Rica comes, like you were saying, it's brought the world to us, but it's brought it faster than we were ready for, I think. But we're moving into it, and we're being, like Kelly said, inventive, and like Maria said, we're embracing it with humor and so forth. So we're moving. It's forcing us to move into this larger venue, and still hold on to the venue. We might all go into smaller venues after this, but we'll have the wider audience as well. So it's made that in conjunct to be real for us.
Awesome, thank you. Tim, how about you?
It doesn't matter how many losses we go through. The reality is we don't really know how we miss something until it's gone. And I think one of the positives about having choir taken away from us is that when we return, it is going to be so precious. There's a meme that says, when we're allowed to all be together and sing once again, will it be the voices that we hear or the tears? And I'm going on the side of the tears for sure. And so I think the fact that it's been taken away, I know for my singers, they're like, oh my gosh, I took it for granted. And COVID will help us not take that connection for granted.
Awesome, thank you. Linnell, how about you?
I'm just thinking about who we will be after this Fermata season is over. Who will we be? I mean, enriched in so many different ways. I'm just so excited about it, and I'm enjoying the journey. The grief period is done. Now it's time to just really relish in the journey and enjoy the journey that, we were always doing singing and performing, but now we're enjoying the journey between the singing and the performance, and there's so much to enjoy. And like Tim said, man, what a sweet sound that will be when we be able to hear each other all together in person. I too took it for granted, never again. But I will also not take this chance for granted as well, as a chance to be able to expand who I am as an artist, as well as my singers to be able to expand who they are as artists. So I'm so excited about who we will be after when this pandemic is over.
Me too, thank you. Gavin, how about you?
First of all, I want to say that Fermata season, I love that. That was a great, I'm going to use that and steal that.
That's not mine. It's Eric Eschenwald's. I got to give it to
okay.
him. I didn't realize it was a Fermata season, but I give that back to Eric Eschenwald's.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing it here. I love it. So for me, I'm going to echo a little bit of what everyone's saying and then add something to it. It really is, to me, there's two things. One is the radical inclusivity that we're able to achieve now that we couldn't before. And I think we really all need to embrace that and push that as far as we can. And I'm really glad to meet everyone on this call today, because there's opportunities now, no matter where we are in the country, for us to work together and create this connection between communities, between choirs that doesn't exist before. I really think that is a huge positive from this, that radical just breaking down barriers and everyone can participate. I also am thinking and hoping, this is a combo here, there's already been so much innovation from people on this call, from people that we've been listening to and gotten our ideas from, and I'm desperately hoping that this Fermata season will result in even more innovation to bring us forward into the next portion of what's capable for music and for choral music. There's been some questions, and I know we'll get to them later, about is there technology that allows us to sing live online? And well, we'll get into a deeper answer, but that's where I'm hoping innovation. There has been already some there's some very limited technology that requires a very high technological skill level to use. But I'm hoping that this can result in some innovation that brings us further into that modern era of what's possible and allows us to maintain this radical expansion and inclusive nature of what we're doing to reach wider audiences even past the pandemic. I don't want to lose that we've now gained and hope we can deepen that together over the next year.
Awesome, thank you. How about you, Jacob?
Yeah, sure. One of the themes that a few of the panelists have talked about is the expanded global reach of our organizations and the opportunity to connect more with a broader audience. And I think that there's an extension of that also in terms of the educational opportunities that are available for the folks like us, the people who are running these organizations. Some of the, I mean, there's certainly a lot of great digital content available online with best practices for chorus operations, chorus management, everything from the artistic side to the administrative side. And I think among the better in-person opportunities that I've experienced have been Chorus America's annual conference, and then Gala Choruses, which is the LGBT choral umbrella. They also have an annual event that's very similar for their membership. And one of the consistent frustrations that I know has been present in both of those communities is, how do you reach out to the organizations that can't afford to come to these events every year? You know, maybe if a conference is held in your state or even better in your city, you might be able to do that without dealing with airfare and, you know, accommodations and things like that. But it's difficult to have a really broad reach and in particular to reach the organizations that probably are most in need of the information that's available at those incredible in-person experiences. You know, many board members in our organizations are first-time board members. They don't have a lot of experience there. So even basic things like dealing with fiscal oversight and how to run an effective board meeting. Like, there are some basic skills that can be so valuable for our organizations. And I think that one of the things that I'm most excited about is how successful Chorus America's virtual conference was this year. I know that it has paved the way for Gala to start thinking about doing similar types of conferences, which has not really been on the table in the past. Even at a more local level, I serve on the board of the New York Choral Consortium, and we've run a series of digital events this summer, which has been an interesting experiment. And so I think that there's a really interesting opportunity to continue to experiment with that form of educational content and make sure that more organizations, people who would not normally have access to that, will be able to continue to access that really, really valuable content moving forward. I'm very hopeful that that will be an important step forward for the field, and especially for the organizations that normally can't make it to those events.
Awesome. How about you, Adam?
Yes, what everybody has said, I mean, absolutely, the connectivity and the kind of globalness of this whole thing. I've been a Tim Seelig fan for a very long time. He doesn't know that, but growing up in men's choruses, that's, to be on a call today with him is kind of amazing. And I've gotten to know Maria this summer quite a bit, and it's been fabulous just to kind of expand all these things. The thing that I would like to add to that is I think this is the great focusing opportunity. This is organizations being able to really look deep and really look inside and say, this is what we do, and this is what we do well, and this is how we can continue to do this going forward. And I don't expect, unfortunately, I don't expect every chorus to come back in the fall ready to go. I don't expect there to be, if we started February of 2020 with 1,000 choruses in Minnesota, I don't expect there to be 1,000 next month. And that's okay, because people that are going to find their way into things that are innovative and interesting and tell everybody what the purpose of their organization is or what they're doing there will do so in a way that is valuable and long lasting. And I think that there's a very natural cycle to that. And that to me is the most exciting thing, aside from getting to meet all of these people who I've very secretly adored for a very long time, and now have a chance to be on the same call with. So I'm looking forward with interest and a good deal of optimism about who is going to be around in a couple months and what amazing fireworks those folks are going to be able to show us all. So that's one thing I'm really excited about.
Awesome, thank you. And then finally, Maria, what has been your positive takeaway from all of this?
Well, first of all, I've had the opportunity, like Adam said, to meet so many wonderful people during this time of pandemic, people I've looked up to for years, and so grateful that I get to not only share spaces, but learn from all these different people. I mean, like, I took a conducting class with Dr. Anthony Tracy King, and it was absolutely amazing. And that's something that I wouldn't have been able to do during this time of pandemic. I mean, yeah, if we wasn't in pandemic. But one thing that I really love that I've learned this stuff is I've really taken the time to reset Maria. And I had to take Maria's mindset, and I had to say, girl, now you can do absolutely whatever you put your mind to do. Now, you've been saying that for years, but now here's the chance. There's no rules. Get out there and do it. So I would like to say to anybody that's on this call, whatever ideas have been in your head to do it. Get out there and do it. Try it. If it fails, what's the worst that could happen? It failed. Okay. Get back up and keep going. With our summer camp, we took a chance. We didn't know what we was doing. We said we was going to do it. I'm not a composer, but I ran a middle school composition summer camp, and we did it, and it was great. And had we not did it, look at all the girls that I would not have had the opportunity to be a part of. So, in this time of pandemic, COVID, and craziness, whatever else is going on in life, hey, grab life by the hair and say, okay, we going. I'm finna do it. I'm gonna try it. And you just might come up with something that's amazing. So that's been the best thing that I've done during this pandemic. I've taken the restraints off Maria and said, girl, do it. Go for it. And I've done it. And it's been great. And like somebody asked in the comments about failure. Well, what's the worst that could happen? You can either fail or you'll never know. I'd rather try and see what happens, because something may work, it may stick. So if I fail, and I always tell all my kids on my calls, and this is before we went into COVID, I would tell my students, I'm going to mess up. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to laugh and we're going to keep going. Well, that still happens in this COVID world. I may mess up on one of these calls with my students or with my adult choir. You know what we're going to do? We're going to laugh and we're going to keep going. So to everybody on here, don't worry about failure. If you mess up, if the technology doesn't work, fix it, laugh, keep going. That's what I've learned during this time.
I hear an amen up in there.
That'd be two.
Thank you, Maria. It seems like at this point we're actually running a bit over time. There were a lot of great questions. I did my best to fold as many in, and I know a lot of the panelists were responding in the chat and also bringing them in on the panel. So I think that just about does it, but this will be published, should be directly after the Harmony Helpers YouTube channel afterwards, if anyone wants to go back and watch. There were some really great resources shared in the chat as well. This was a really exciting and enlightening and positive conversation. So thank you to all the panelists for participating. Thank you for the wonderful discussion for everyone viewing in the different chats between Zoom and YouTube. Really appreciate that. And I hope everyone stays safe and continues to sing. Thank you, everyone.